The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
And good morning. Thanks for waking up with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher. Your time now is 5:02, and we begin this morning with a deadly officer-involved shooting in Oildale. More than a dozen law enforcement vehicles swarmed the scene yesterday afternoon at the corner of State and Pierce Streets. Deputies say they got the first call at about 1 p.m., responding to several reports of a person breaking car windows. When deputies arrived, things escalated.
Deputies responded and located the suspect, who was armed with a deadly weapon. The suspect then attempted to take an uninvolved subject hostage, and an officer-involved shooting then occurred. The suspect was pronounced deceased at the scene.
KCSO says no one else was hurt during the incident, and we're working to learn more about what led up to the confrontation and who was involved.
This is the second officer-involved shooting in Kern County this year. The first one happened in January and involved two McFarland police officers. 34-year-old Eduardo Figueroa is charged with multiple felonies in connection with the New Year's Day shooting. Figueroa was shot by police after allegedly opening fire on a police dog named Axel. Meantime, a man accused of shooting and wounding another man outside an East Bakersfield bar, who was then shot himself while running from law enforcement, pleaded no contest to 5 felonies yesterday. 40-year-old Henry Rodriguez is set to be sentenced April 6th. The shootings occurred December 12, 2020, outside Stella's Sand Trap on Nile Street. An update now on a rude awakening early yesterday morning, as police say a stolen car crashed into an East Bakersfield home. It started just after 4:30 in the morning when police say a man threatened the person with a gun on Bill Avenue and stole a car. A little more than an hour later, police were called out to a report of a car that had crashed into a home on Alta Vista Drive near Flower Street. Police say it ended up being the same car stolen in the carjacking, and the driver, identified as 24-year-old Israel Wilson, was uncooperative, according to law enforcement. He was arrested for carjacking and related charges.
Spikes in violent crimes such as carjackings and police shootings are prevalent nationwide, with recent upticks in big cities. It's an issue that divides lawmakers and many Americans in search of solutions. NBC News correspondent Bree Jackson spoke with a senior White House advisor about the Biden administration's crime prevention strategy.
Good morning, Maddie. Republicans say that Democrats' soft on crime policies are to blame for rising crime rates we're seeing nationwide. I spoke with a White House senior advisor about the president's strategy to tackle crime amid calls to defund the police.
Another day, another deadly shooting. In Washington, D.C., police say a stray bullet struck and killed a woman as she sat inside a car Wednesday.
The individuals who were in the car, these were not the intended targets.
The shooting, a sign of a nationwide spike in crime. According to the Council on Criminal Justice, homicides rose 5% in major cities last year compared to 2020. A recent increase in carjackings plagues many cities as well.
Guns were pointed in my face before I could blink an eye.
White House senior advisor Cedric Richmond tells me tackling crime remains a top priority.
It involves putting more police officers on the street.
In New York alone, more than half a dozen police officers have been shot in the city this year. Republicans argue calls to defund the police are partly to blame.
We know that anti-police culture wars invite more crime.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers agree more must be done to protect communities, but their plan to do so differs.
The crime that we are seeing surging across this country is a direct result of Democrats' soft on crime policies.
Crime prevention must be a partnership between law enforcement and the communities that they serve.
White House officials insist the administration is focused on investing in law enforcement while holding police accountable.
We have not given up on the fact that we need to have police reform.
Public safety, a key issue heading into midterms, both parties hoping to convince voters they'll keep communities safe.
In addition to increased funding for law enforcement, White House officials say their strategy includes aggressive enforcement of gun safety laws and investments in crime prevention programs. In Washington, I'm Bree Jackson for 17 News.
Making headlines around the nation this morning, the family of Bob Saget says the actor-comedian died of a brain bleed caused by an injury to the back of his head. Saget was found dead in his hotel in Orlando last month. The Full House star was on a comedy tour at the time. His family says they were told he died of head trauma and that he probably hit his head on the back of something, then thought nothing of it and then went to sleep. Saget was 65 years old. His family says drugs or alcohol were not found in his system.
Back here at home, our work to replace thousands of toys lost in a recent fire in Oildale continues this morning. A trailer parked next to Instant Mini Storage off State Road went up in flames early last week, taking with it toys donated to the Bakersfield Homeless Center. A community effort to replace those toys is now underway. Toys for Tots will be storing the items for the center and even match the number of toys we receive here at our station. If you'd like to donate, you can bring toys by our studios in downtown Bakersfield during regular business hours through the end of the month. Kern County fire stations will also serve as drop-off points for the toys, and the fire department says they will be accepting donations through Monday.
5:32 is our time now. It was just a few weeks ago that Bakersfield Congressman Kevin McCarthy decided not to comply with the January 6th committee's request for an interview and records. Now McCarthy is once again at the center of new developments when it comes to the attack at the U.S. Capitol.
17th Maddie Gannon joins us live from McCarthy's Bakersfield office this morning with more. Maddie.
Maddie, Alex, good morning. It was just late last week that the Republican National Committee issued a resolution to censure the two House Republicans who sit on the January 6th committee. And now they also called it legitimate political discourse. Those two Republicans, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, have been outspoken critics of former President Donald Trump and adamant about investigating the events on January 6th. The RNC's move spurred questions about what GOP leaders in Congress, including Bakersfield's Kevin McCarthy, thought of the decision to censure and the decision to refer to the actions at the Capitol as legitimate political discourse. The responses seem to split Congress's most powerful Republicans. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell called January 6 a violent insurrection and said the RNC should not be singling out Cheney and Kinzinger. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy's answer was less definitive.
I think anybody, and we all know this, that entered this building that rioted is not legitimate discourse, but I don't think that's what the RNC was talking about when we talked to him. I think there's a reason why Adam is not running again. I think there's a reason why, at the end of the day, Liz would have a hard time winning here if she runs, and I don't think she'll run.
McCarthy said the RNC was talking about the subpoenas the January 6th committee issued towards RNC officials who were in Florida on the day of the Capitol attack. But the House Minority Leader did not specify which individuals he was referring to. McCarthy's response came after he seemed to avoid questions about the topic from reporters throughout most of the first few days this week. Maddie, Alex, back to you.
All right, Maddie, thanks so much. 5:34 is our time now, and coronavirus is still trending down in Kern, although yesterday's update had an increase in daily number of cases. Public Health announced more than 2,100 new cases yesterday. Our average still sits above 1,000 daily infections. That is down, though, from 2,400 daily infections from just about 3 weeks ago. 3 new deaths were also reported yesterday. State data shows 222 people are in the hospital with the virus in Kern County. 43 more are in the ICU.
In your Crime Watch this morning, the Kern County Sheriff's Office is investigating a shooting in Wasco that left a man wounded. It happened just before 6 last night. KCSO says they arrived to the alley on 8th Street between D and E Streets to find a man with a gunshot wound to his face. The man says he was walking in the alley when several people in a car pulled up and tried to rob him. And that's when the shooting happened. He was flown by helicopter to Kern Medical, where he is expected to recover.
Now to a human trafficking bust in Oildale involving several law enforcement agencies and the FBI. Investigators say 3 people were arrested yesterday at a home on Hughes Avenue, and 2 juvenile victims were safely recovered. 7 adults were also identified as victims. The suspects are identified as 30-year-old Jashante Howard, 28-year-old Katisha Corter, and 25-year-old Alan Harper. All face multiple counts of human trafficking. There are resources available for victims of human trafficking. You can call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. Or here locally, the Child Protective Services Hotline. That number is 631-6011. You can also visit the Department of Human Services website. That's kcdhs.org.
This morning, the Bakersfield Police Department is asking for your help finding a missing man considered at risk. 76-year-old Ronald Lee Stark was last seen around 7 last night near Quailwood Elementary School in southwest Bakersfield. He's considered at risk due to a medical condition. Stark is described as 6'3", 170 pounds with brown hair and green eyes. If you have information on where he may be, call police. Meantime, a homicide investigation is underway following the discovery of a body in East Bakersfield. Deputies with the Kern County Sheriff's Office were dispatched to South Vineland Road near Highway 58 just before 1 o'clock yesterday afternoon. There they found the body of a man with head trauma. No further information is available.
Progress is being made on the Central Valley's first ever Holocaust Memorial, honoring the millions of people killed during World War II. The County Board of Supervisors yesterday contributed more than $1,200 to the Chabad of Bakersfield Community Center. That is the site of the project. The memorial will be made up of 6 million buttons. Last year, 5 million buttons were donated by Cynthia Fisher, but the center is asking the community for help in finishing this project. Each button will bear the name of one of the Holocaust victims.
That this is like a new life for these people who didn't have the opportunity to live their life. And so in numerology, in Hebrew numerology, the word life is represented by 18. So theoretically, $18 for a commemoration of life.
If you would like to purchase a button, you can contact the Chabad of Bakersfield Community Center. The memorial is expected to be complete in September.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.